should Russia choose further aggression. We've stepped forward with more support for Ukraine's security and economy. And we and our allies have partnered.
Keep left to continue on Fags Road.
Now, we'll continue to press forward and prepare. It remains up to Russia to decide how to respond.
Do you have a question about the Ukraine?
In a quarter of a mile, turn left onto Great Southwest Road, A30.
Has a question. Hi, Shivik. What do you want to ask?
Hi, Eddie. I'd like to ask Tim and Anna, there are Russian minorities in the Ukraine and in the Baltic republics. This is a legacy of the Soviet Union. I read about this in Misha Glen's book, The Rebirth of History, and I think this is giving a pretext for Putin to intervene in the neighbouring states. How do they see this situation? How do they see this problem, this legacy of the Soviet Union? How do they resolve this issue?
Thank you, Shivik. Tim.
You're right to bring it up, thank you. I think it's about 8 million Russians. No, I should phrase that differently. Ukrainian ethnic Russians in Ukraine. One of the Baltic states, almost 50% of the country is ethnically Russian, and they all have large minorities. Nevertheless, they're not Russian. They are Ukrainian, and they are Estonian, and they are Lithuanian. And most of them feel that way. And most of them would not support Russia. I mean, they take one look at the economy and the
Take the second left onto Great Southwest Road, A30.
etc., and they think, we may well be better off where we are. But you're right to bring it up because about 3 or 4 years ago, Putin pushed a law through Parliament.
Continue on Great Southwest Road for 3/4 of a mile.
The Russians have to go to the aid of any ethnic Russian that is in danger anywhere. So consequently, it's very easy, if you so wish, to create a situation in, let's say, Estonia, or in this case in the Donbas region of Ukraine, where there's a large amount of ethnic Russians. You create a situation, and then you say, our constitution says we must go to their help, to their protection, and then you go in as peacekeepers. So that is one of many, many options that Mr. Putin has.
And Anna, I wonder how you would respond to that. Shivik just asking about Russian population, as he put it, in Ukraine. You touched on this a little earlier.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't say that it's a problem. It's part of Ukraine.
In a quarter of a mile, take the exit towards Heathrow Airport.
In Tatar or Bulgarian or Jewish communities or whatever other community you name. A lot of these people, actually, a lot of ethnic Russians are actually fighting on the front line against the Russian aggression. It is true that a lot of...
Take the exit towards Heathrow Airport.
In the occupied territory. However, by now, they have lived in Ukraine for...
In a quarter of a mile, keep left at the fork to continue towards Southern Perimeter Road.
And as far as I understand, there is not great migration from Baltic states or EU countries that have Russian parts of the population, ethnic Russian parts of the population, or from the US. There is no migration back to Russia, and that is for a reason, as was mentioned before, that Russia's economy is not as attractive. Russia's political system.
Keep left at the fork.
Probably the civic freedoms are not as attractive for these people to encourage them to come back to Russia, and that is what Putin should be focusing on if he actually wants to protect the rights of the Russian citizens or ethnic Russians. But this, what has been mentioned, the law and this pretext of protecting Russian...
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road.
For provocations and for Russia to justify its actions.
Anna, thank you. Anna Corbett and Tim Marshall with us till 7 o'clock. If you have a question, it's 0345 6060 973. Michael has this text, and we'll get the answer from Tim in just a moment. Michael says, I fear that if NATO becomes militarily involved, this will very quickly escalate into a nuclear world war. What are the panel's thoughts on that, Michael? Thank you for the question. We'll get the answer after the headlines now from him.
Resumptions of parties in Downing Street during lockdown is expected tomorrow at the earliest now. Number 10 says the Prime Minister is yet to receive the findings of Sue Gray's inquiry. Separately, emails have emerged which suggest the Prime Minister authorised the evacuation of rescue animals out of Afghanistan. Boris Johnson had previously claimed he didn't intervene following pleas from charity worker Pen Farthing. And a man has been cleared of manslaughter after a suspected thief died when a citizen's arrest was performed on him. Nathan Smith knelt on Craig Wiltshire's back for 9 minutes in Bristol in November 2019.
LBC Business Update.
With direct lines.
Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road. Continue on Southern Perimeter Road for 1.5 miles.
National Express and Stagecoach is being investigated by the UK's competition watchdog. An initial enforcement order has been served which stops the firms from fully combining while the deal's being looked into. LBC weather: rain easing in northern Scotland tonight, moving southwards towards central parts, lows of 4 degrees.
With that Sue Gray report looming, a police investigation underway, and Boris Johnson's future as Prime Minister hanging in the balance. For all the very latest reactions, stay with LBC.
We all have a fire inside us. It gives us energy and spirit to do the things we love. Every morning we need to feed that fire and set ourselves up for the day with a warming and satisfying bowl of Quaker oats. Because when we feed it right, when it's fully ablaze, we can take on anything the day might bring.
Don't tell me this is
Feed more than just your body. Feed the fire inside. Quaker oats.
I've watched you drive too fast, just because we're a bit late.
I've seen you driving too close to the car ahead when we're on the way to school.
I've noticed when you try and make the lights, even when they're amber.
I thought you go too fast, so I get pushed back in the seat.
And I've seen you slam on the brakes to avoid hitting someone.
Dad! Watch your speed. Everyone else does.
To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Introducing the new McPlant. It's everything you love about the McDonald's taste, only this time it's vegan. With a juicy and succulent patty, co-created with Beyond Meat. A delicious vegan cheese alternative, vegan sandwich sauce, juicy tomato, onions, crisp lettuce, and of course, gherkins. Or not, the choice is always yours. It's our iconic taste, plant-based. For information about McPlant, visit mcdonalds.co.uk/McPlant. Served after 11 a.m, subject to availability.
The Sky Broadband January sale is here. Celebrate the new year with a bang and get our fibre special at just £25 a month for 18 months with a 1995 setup. You'll get super fast speed and our outstanding service too. All for an amazing £25 a month. New and existing customers, this January fibre special won't last long. Go to sky.com today. Offer ends 27th of January, usually £28, £33 a month after 18 months. Prices may change. Average download speed 59 megabits. See sky.com.
In 1/4 mile at Western Perimeter Road roundabout, take the first exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road. Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road. In 200 yards, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Airport Way, A3113. Exit the roundabout onto Airport Way. Continue on Airport Way for 1/2 mile. quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the 4th exit onto the M25 slip road to M4, M40. Exit the roundabout onto the slip road. Continue for half a mile. In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M25. Continue on M25 for 1 mile. In a quarter of a mile, at junction 15, use the left lane to take the M4 exit to Reading, Slough.
Let's get an answer then to that question from Michael, concerned about deteriorating into a nuclear war. Other listeners expressing similar sentiments. Tim.
I understand the anxiety.
Use the left lane to exit at junction 15, then keep left at the fork.
It's mostly messaging, the signalling Russia that this is what the world's going to look like after.
Keep left at the fork.
But I think it's extremely unlikely this ends up, I think, as Michael said, in World War III. Let me give you 3 scenarios. One, as I said...
Continue on M4 for 1.5 miles.
Gains some concessions, pockets them, and then comes back again in 2 or 3 years. Scenario 2, there is some form of invasion, so horrible fighting, at which point the NATO powers continue to reinforce and give Ukraine lots and lots of support, intelligence, money and weapons, whatever is left of Ukraine, to fight. But the crucial thing is that Ukraine is not in NATO. We have no obligation to actually fight, nor is there any appetite to fight. Nobody in NATO countries, none of the leaders want to do it. There's just no intention to do this. Article 5 of NATO, in case you don't know, says an attack on one member is an attack on all, and we all must respond. We are nowhere near that. So they're under no obligation, nor would they. There are no British soldiers going to go to Ukraine and fight. The last scenario is, I think, implausible. But this is why some people might be worried. After taking, let's say, half of Ukraine as a buffer zone between it and NATO, Putin gambles completely and closes what's called the Slovakian gap. If you look at the map, between Russia and Belarus, there's a 30-mile gap before you get to Kaliningrad and the Baltic Sea. Kaliningrad is a Russian exclave. If you can close that gap, you have then cut off the Baltic states from the rest of NATO, and then you push forward all the way to the border with Poland. Yes, that could spark something. But, I mean, I've been looking at Putin for...
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
...strategist and a tactician. And I don't think he's a gambler. So I see it'd be extraordinarily unlikely that he would push things that far. He will, if he's going to do this, he'll do it and pocket it. I don't think he's not going to go for any NATO country now.
Keep right to stay on M4.
From Peter in Wimbledon. Hi, Peter.
Good evening, guys. Thank you for the very informative program. I'm Ukrainian, but
Continue on M4 for 4 miles.
The question I have to the panel is, we have known that Ukraine in 1994 signed a Budapest Memorandum Agreement with the US, United Kingdom and Russia that we're going to give up our third largest nuclear deterrent in exchange for guarantees of our territorial integrity. And fast forward 20 years later, one of those countries broke the agreement, they invaded us and took part of our land. So at what stage UK and United States going to step in and honor the agreement? Once you guarantee some of their security integrity, 20 years later, it seems like it doesn't exist. The Ukraine were left fighting Russians for the last 8 years on their own.
Peter, we'll get an answer to your question from Anna in just a second, but I wonder, given who you are, how do you view what's going on in Ukraine?
Well, I can see that Putin is bluffing because, honestly, Ukraine in 2021 is not the same as Ukraine in 2022. The Ukraine will give Putin really bloody nose, and this will be the beginning of his end. No matter whether it's full-scale invasion or some small incursions and stuff, Ukraine is much stronger power militarily with the help of our allies, and we have much stronger army. So unless Putin is feeling suicidal, in my opinion, he will go to invade Ukraine. Ukrainian people, no matter what language they speak, Russian or Ukrainian, are united in their resistance against Russian aggression.
All right, Peter, let's get an answer to your question from Anna. Peter wondering about guarantees given to Ukraine in 1994 and what that means for what countries, including the UK, should do now.
Well, thank you for the question. Yes, that was the Budapest Memorandum. That the thing is that it wasn't like Article 5 of NATO. So while these countries signed the memorandum, they did not commit to defend Ukraine or to defend Ukraine collectively if one of the members violates its obligation under the memorandum. Right now, the US and the UK are providing assistance, including military assistance to Ukraine. However, the fighting and the defense of the country is done by Ukrainians. So that has to be understood. There are no Western troops fighting with Ukraine or for Ukraine. It's highly unlikely that NATO countries are going to send any troops or are going to get engaged militarily in defending Ukraine. That's the task that will be up to the Ukrainians, and that the Ukrainians have been dealing with that task for 8 years now. What the West is doing is warning.
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Could be imposed on Russia for further incursions into Ukraine or a wider scale aggression. And that has to be done because, Putin is not a kamikaze. He has a price to pay domestically. And while the Western Ukraine can get him, while his blackmail of the Western Ukraine can get him some concessions that he could use to score political points at home, a wider scale economic impact on people that will have a serious impact on the quality of their lives, on the amount of money they have in their wallet. I don't think it's going to play in the hands of Putin as at home. So I don't think he would bring the situation to a scale that would impose such a huge economic cost on Russia. However, it is right for the West to warn him of that cost and to show readiness to impose that cost.
Peter, thank you for the question, and Anna, to you for the answer. Tim Marshall and Anna Corbett with us till 7. What's your question on Ukraine? Amelia Cox now with the headlines.
Number 10 says it intends to release a report into allegations of Downing Street parties during lockdown as Boris Johnson receives it. Separately, emails have emerged which suggest the Prime Minister did authorise the evacuation of rescue animals out of Afghanistan. And police investigating a siege at a synagogue in Texas have arrested a further 2 men in Manchester. LBC weather: rain easing in northern Scotland tonight, moving southwards towards central parts, lows of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M23 northbound. 2 lanes are closed on the exit slip road to the M25 at junction 8 because a car has overturned. It's slow on the M25 clockwise. There's a lane closed on the exit slip road at junction 21A for St Albans because of an accident. On the M25 clockwise, it's also heavy because of debris on the road at junction 3 for the M20 where 1 lane is closed. It's slow on the M4 going into town at junction 4 for Heathrow because a car has broken down. It's very slow on the A12 going out of town from the Lee interchange to the Red.
In a quarter of a mile at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Is closed from Piccadilly Circus to Great Windmill Street. That's after a water main burst earlier this afternoon.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Trust in the Prime Minister is an ever-disappointing...
Exit at junction 6.
Today he's accused of telling a porky over whether he authorised the evacuation of Pen Farthing's animals.
Ian Dale on LBC.
In a quarter of a mile at the roundabout, take the 3rd exit onto Tons Lane, A355.
With consultant-led treatment and unlimited aftercare, our COVID-19...
Exit the roundabout onto Tons Lane. In a quarter of a mile, turn left towards Sippenham Lane. Turn left towards Sippenham Lane. Continue for 1.5 miles.